Hi, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the El Cajon City Council meeting. The meeting is now called to order, and I'd like to ask for the city clerk to please call the roll.
All council members are present.
Would you all stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance and then remain standing for a brief moment of silence? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, before we get started, we have closed session today, which we almost always do at the end of the session. However, due to some unusual circumstances, we need to move that up a little bit. So after we get done with consent agenda, we're going to go to closed session for just a few minutes, and then we'll be back to conclude the rest of the meeting.
And Mr. Mayor, I'd recommend we only take items 24 and 25. We can save the other closed session items for when they're regularly scheduled on the...
Oh, that's great. Thank you. That'll make it faster. Okay, the city clerk posted orders of adjournment of the August 8th, 2023 meeting and the agenda of the September 12th, 2023 meeting in accordance with state law, City Council and Housing Authority policy. We have two presentations on today's agenda. The first presentation is for Camp Runamut, and I'll ask our marketing and engagement manager, Chris Berg, to tell us all about this. Gentlemen.
All right, good afternoon. Just waiting for our slide to come up here. There we go. So this year we wanted to bring a new program to the city of El Cajon called the Dog Days of Summer, involving our Heartland Fire team. And the program had three main objectives. One was to promote community engagement with both local business as well as our community members, highlight our therapy dog program that we have within Heartland at 3 of the stations, and generate positive PR for the city of El Cajon. We obviously had a lot of community engagement, a lot of smiling faces, hundreds of people coming in over 4 different Saturdays throughout the summer. We did the first Saturday of each month through the summer, and plenty of dogs also got to have their fun time as well. So, very good program. It also became very educational. We've got our firefighter Jess there, who was doing demonstrations and seeing how quickly she could get all her gear on in under a minute, showing off for the kids there. And then when it came to the PR side, we've got a ton of coverage on this, where they not only featured what we were doing for the Dog Days of Summer, but also featuring Yara quite a bit. She became quite the TV star this summer. But none of this would have been possible without a huge contribution from one of our local businesses here in El Cajon. And so next I would like to welcome up our owners of Camp Runamut. If you guys would like to come forward. So Mike and Molly own Camp Runamut here in El Cajon, and they brought out their staff this year, 4 different Saturdays, and you did a lot of dogs. So it was several hours each Saturday morning. They offered free dog washes for anyone that came, and yeah, people came in hordes. So we've got a gift for them as well.
So from Heartland Fire and Rescue, we'd like to offer you a token of our appreciation. These are challenge coins. These are kind of a keepsake. They have a long history in military and fire. So for each one of you, appreciation.
All right, so yeah, that concludes our Dog Days of Summer for this summer. So again, really thank you for all your help. So, all right.
Thanks very much for all you did. Okay. Now we have a proclamation for National Preparedness Month, which I will read. But first, I'd like to invite Fire Chief Bent Coe and Emergency Preparedness Coordinator Andy McKellar to come up and tell us a little bit about this.
Good afternoon.
Hi, Chief.
Thank you for having us.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having us here.
Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Okay, now I'm going to read the proclamation. Whereas National Preparedness Month creates an opportunity for every resident of the city of El Cajon to prepare their homes, businesses, and communities for any type of emergency. And whereas California residents have previously experienced the effects of various disasters, including severe winter storms, earthquakes, and devastating wildland fires, resulting in loss of life and damages costing millions of dollars. And whereas the aftermath of the 2003 and 2007 firestorms in San Diego County demonstrated the necessity for careful and thorough emergency planning and preparedness among individuals, communities, and agencies locally. And whereas the recent unprecedented tropical storm Hillary brought awareness to dangers which heavy wind, rain, and flooding can cause across the region, along with additional El Nino conditions forecast for the coming winter months. And whereas the loss of life and damage to property can be reduced if appropriate emergency preparedness measures are taken during and after a major emergency. And whereas National Preparedness Month is observed in September, and this year's theme is Take Control in 1, 2, 3, all citizens of the city of El Cajon are encouraged to participate in citizen preparedness activities and asked to review the Ready Campaign's website at ready.gov or heartlandfire.org and become more prepared. Now, therefore, I, Bill Wells, the mayor of the city of El Cajon, together with the city council, do hereby proclaim the month of September 2023 as National Preparedness Month. And be it further proclaimed that the mayor and the city council of the city of El Cajon urge all citizens and businesses to develop their own emergency preparedness plans and work together towards creating a more prepared community. Signed this 12th day of September, 2023.
Thank you very much, Mayor Wells and council members. I'm going to turn it over real quick to our Emergency Preparedness Coordinator, Andy McKellar. There's 3 items that he wants to reiterate as we are looking at the Emergency Preparedness Month. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Andy.
Again, good afternoon, and thank you for having us here. The 3 things I want to cover very quickly. There's 3 steps to preparedness, the same steps I've been talking about for over 20 years in emergency management. Have a plan, make a kit, stay informed. Those 3 things. If our citizens, our community members had those 3 steps in place, then disaster response for the rest of the city, all the first responders, is going to become much, much easier. During Hurricane Hillary, our community certainly had the communication piece down pretty well. They asked a lot of questions. They stayed well informed. It's those first 2 that are going to be critical if things really go south. And I also want to say at this point, too, that the city staff that operated the EOC during that time did a stellar job. Really fantastic work. Top-notch crew. So you can be very proud of their efforts during that storm event. Anyway, those are the 3 things I really wanted to get across today. Again, make a kit, have a plan, be informed. Those 3 things. It's very, very easy. Thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. McKellar. I appreciate that. Chief, did you want to say anything else?
No, Andy's our subject matter expert, and I just wanted to refer to Andy, and thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for the proclamation.
Thanks for the hard work that your department always does. Thank you. All right, staff, do you have any agenda changes?
Except for the one already announced, no other changes.
Council? All right. We're now at consent items. Consent items are routine matters enacted by one motion according to the recommendation listed below. With the concurrence of the City Council, a council member or person in attendance may request discussion of a consent item at this time. Council members, do you wish to pull any of the consent items? Nope. All right, staff?
No, sir.
All right, I'll make a motion then to approve the consent items. Please vote.
Thank you, sir. And for the record, there were no speaker cards, and motion carries by unanimous vote.
Okay. I'm going to make a motion then to adjourn to closed session for which items?
Mayor, the council is going to be meeting in closed session on the first two items on the agenda for closed session, items 24 and 25. 24 is a closed session for a conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, initiation of litigation pursuant to paragraph 4 of subdivision D of Government Code section 54956.9. There's one potential case. Item 25 is a closed session for a conference with legal counsel on anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to paragraph 2 of subdivision D of Government Code section 54956.9. One potential case. It's based on a claim from Truck and SUV Superstore, Inc., doing business as East County Pre-Owned Superstore, which has submitted a claim for damages alleging loss of profits and other damages due to construction on the El Cajon Boulevard streetscape project, which abuts the claimant's business.
Thank you, counsel. Okay, I make a motion then to adjourn the closed session. Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to conduct this business. We'll be back as quick as we possibly can to conclude the meeting. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. I will ask our city attorney to report on what happened in closed session.
Thank you, Mayor. The City Council met in closed session on items 24 and 25 as described previously. There was no action taken by the City Council.
Thank you. All right, we're now at public comment. At this time, any person may address a matter within the jurisdiction of the City Council, Housing Authority, successor agency to the El Cajon Redevelopment Agency that is not on the agenda. Comments relating to items on today's agenda are to be taken at the time that the item is heard. State law prohibits discussion or action on items not on the agenda. However, City Council and Housing Authority members may briefly respond to statements or questions, and an item may be placed on a future agenda. Angela, do we have any speaker cards for public comment?
We do, sir. We have 3 of them. The first one is Kenneth Kestner.
Hello, sir. Welcome.
Welcome. 11 days ago, I was at the courthouse. As you know, I was here about 5 months ago, and about a flagrancy in a court case I had, and I'm trying to figure out how to go about it. And so after spending, I had my first 2-hour pass, I was forced to go into a ministry, not forced, but I had to go into a ministry, which I've been at, and they have strict rules. And so I had to walk and take, to the bus routes to get here, even though I have a truck. And the rules get less as time goes by. But on the way home, I was able to take my truck this one time. I wasn't supposed to, but I played dumb. And on the way home, after spending time in the courthouse, I was rear-ended. Now, I've invested in a very strong bumper, and I keep my tailgate down. So all the damage went to him. But if you want to believe that was a coincidence that I was slammed into, and for some reason I had the brakes on really good too, or I would have gone clearly into the next car. Okay, so that was I'm not going to believe that was, maybe that was just a coincidence. Okay, because I've got Judge, as I told you before, I believe I have Judge John Thompson on a flagrancy where he wouldn't set an appointment to call to a witness, a Spanish translator who had heard my attorney doing clear flagrancies with other people to get me to sign not to go to trial over something, which has affected me for the rest of my life. And I'm going forward on this, and I've talked about it, and now I'm on the right path. I'm going to get the original stenography off of what's called my C file, and I'm going that route now instead of other routes that I had mentioned. And the C file's right there. He should have automatically said, well, we'll get a lineup of the Spanish translators. And my attorney never said, well, how about a lineup of the Spanish translators? For some reason, I was seated about here, and my attorney was about 5 or 10 feet behind where you are. That's how far apart we were. I was on a high chair, so I had already been given about a 40-minute perp walk around the facility while they pretended they couldn't find the judge's office. And after a day of bus rides and everything, so I said, Kenny, let it go. So what I'm here for is these accidents or issues as I come and go to the courthouse. I want them, I'm making them duly noted. Like I'm going to go up there now and get it on paper. I already filled out what happened. So I'm just here to get this stuff on thing because I hope they stop, but I'm not stopping. I'm 60 years old and I have nothing, so I want to sue them. Okay, thank you kindly.
Thank you, sir.
Rich Reel.
Hello, sir. Welcome.
Members of the City Council and the Mayor, thank you for listening to me. I appreciate this. First of all, I want to go back a little bit in history through my favorite person, Socrates. He says all governments are the relationship between the rulers and the ruled. And then he laid out the best possible world, and that is a republic, which is what we have here today. The reason that I'm here is that I am, just like, because it's a republic, I am running for public office. I'm running for the Board of Directors of the East County Chamber of Commerce. And whether you run for President of the United States or you run for the Chamber of Commerce, you have a vision that you want to sell to the voters, the people that you go to. And I want to share the vision that I'm going back to the Chamber of Commerce because it involves all of you, and especially Graham Mitchell and Vince DiMaggio. I want to thank you all for the opportunity to be going to the PBID. I go to the PBID meetings all the time, and at the PBID meeting, I had the opportunity to see the plans for Parkway Plaza. Parkway Plaza is the most stellar example of a city that has an opportunity to make a statement to the world. I want you to dream big. I have a vision, and I'm going to sell it to the Chamber of Commerce, and we're going to come back and we're going to push it for it. But the best and highest use, and this comes from Graham Mitchell and from Vince DiMaggio and the staff, is a high-rise residential building. Well, they're right. That's exactly what we should do, and there's 4 parcels, and we can put those parcels together because the management at Parkway Plaza is so bad, they're in bankruptcy, and it's an eyesore for El Cajon. So what we need to do is we need to have a vision, and we need to start planning for that vision. Now, many of you have heard of the term 15-minute cities. Let's build a 15-minute city here in El Cajon, and let's build a statement to the world so that when you're coming down from Alpine and you see something, the first thing you see is not that ugly high-rise over there. It's the high-rise that rises out of the fields where Parkway Plaza was built on. That's the opportunity that we have now, and I want us to dream big. Right now, the biggest building west of the Mississippi is in California. It's in Los Angeles, and it's the at any rate, I want us to build a multi-use government, stores, grocery stores, everything in one location where you don't have to use a car, tie it to Interstate 8, tie it to the metro system, and that's going to be the signature statement, and it'll be our legacy to the future. And I want to thank you for all listening to my dream, and I want you to know I'm going to work to make it happen.
Thank you, sir.
Our last speaker is Brenda Hammond.
Hello, Brenda.
Hi, Graham. Mr. Mitchell. First, I want to thank you for the concert. So much fun. We even got doctors and nurses dancing out there from Grossmont. I had something prepared to say, but it was kind of personal, like the 9th assault I've had this weekend. It's okay, I handled it okay. This is Humpty. I don't know if you guys remember, a few years ago I introduced him to you. after the miracle surgery I had done in 1991, my mother's cousin sent this Humpty with a note that said, "Now we know you will never crack." Get it? Crack. And I will not, no matter how much harassment I get from the county programs that are supposed to be helping the homeless people when all they're doing is creating more homeless people for you guys to take care of. Because I've seen, you've heard me at the last meeting, so I'm not going to rehash. Oh, it's working. So when I throw this in the air and when I catch it, it sounds like glass breaking. I don't know if you remember. I remember one mayor hiding under a table. So it's not loud because the battery's going dead, so I don't know if it'll work.
I hear it.
Can you hear it? So it's really loud, and the past mayor of Lemon Grove kind of, well, I won't say it. Sorry, Mary. So anyway, thanks again for all the fun. And I wanted you to know I did check out Santee. I went and I saw their how they have their whole city stuff set up and everything, which is really nice. So I'm glad they took me around and showed me all this stuff, and I said, okay. But I'm sticking with La Mesa, Lemon Grove, and El Cajon. Thank you.
Thanks for coming. Okay, is that the last?
No other speakers, sir.
Okay, then. There are no written communications on today's agenda. There are no public hearings on today's agenda. We have 2 administrative reports on today's agenda. Item 16 is regarding the proposed location for the Veterans Memorial. And I will ask the Parks and Recreation Director, Mr. Frank Carson, to come up and tell us about this. Hi, Frank.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I am here to update you on the Veterans Memorial or proposed Veterans Memorial process, as this is one of the City Council priorities. We had an original memorial placed up in the Fletcher Hills area. As you can see in the image here, it's in between a median off of Navajo and Fletcher Hills, or Fletcher Parkway. And this was in observation of one of our local residents, Eddie Murphy, who was an executive officer. He was a POW at the time, and so the Fletcher Hills Kiwanis Club actually organized this memorial in working with the city of El Cajon, and they actually maintain this area and the flag for the city. Beyond that, the current memorial that we have just outside our doors here was placed in November 11th, 2000. And now in 2022, we've started a new exploratory group to actually look at an updated Veterans Memorial and possible location. So this is what the memorial looks like today. We have the American Legion Post 303. They dedicated this to the city back in November 11th, 2000. You can see the bottom left of the actual video right there is the original. And then in June 2014, City Council voted to actually update the flag with the larger POW MIA flag. So that's why you see all of that in grandeur right there, right outside our doors in front of the Magnolia, and recognizing the Magnolia and how it's rolling their activities and events outside the doors. We thought it was best to actually find a more prudent location for the Veterans Memorial. So during this time period, city staff has had 29 different interactions. I'll talk about what those are. We've done over 200 surveys. We've met with the 501c19s, and 501c19s are your veterans service organizations that are nonprofits. So your American Legion Post 303, and I believe we have some members from that group here today. You also have your Marine Corps League Detachment, your AMVETS, VFW, and Navy Fleet Reserve Association. We attended and also presented at the VECA, which is a veterans-related group associated with the San Diego East County Chamber. We hosted 4 community meetings, some in the evening, some on the weekends, just to get input from community members. And we've also presented and met with the Veterans Coalition twice. I believe we have 2 members here today from the Veterans Coalition. One member from Veterans Coalition, Jack Kane, is wearing 2 hats with the American Legion also. So I thank you, Jack, for wearing both hats. I want to just briefly go over some feedback for council, just so council's updated. Some of these you're familiar with, some may be new. So It was asked, and we got direction from council at one of our previous engagements with council was asked to include Space Force, as it is recognized as part of the Department of Defense now, and so that would be a part of it. We also presented in the past that we should include the Merchant Marines. Merchant Marines were called into service during World War II, and as it was told to us from different veterans groups, people wouldn't think, they wouldn't, lack of a better term, ding us for having the Merchant Marines, but we would definitely get some people not happy with us if we did not include the Merchant Marines. So that was the recommendation at that time. So council did give us direction, like, yes, we do want you to include Space Force. We do want you to include Merchant Marines in the ultimate design, should we go in that direction. Later, in other feedback conversations, said it should include something about PWMIA. There were some groups that said maybe you want to consider a first responder memorial associated or auxiliary to the side of it, identifying the firefighters and police personnel. We, in talks with different groups, some groups said, can you include the El Cajon Veteran of the Year? And in further conversation with them, we would maybe have like a QR code so people can be redirected to a website so we can keep that like a live page, not having to update the site every year or so. So other feedback included that they wanted this a destination location or a public meeting location. The current site is used as a ceremonial location. So not just necessarily a drive-by, but this is where we meet and gather. They asked for adequate parking, making sure that it was a safe and secure location, and recognizing 7 branches of service. So I included Space Force and Merchant Marines in there, along with the Coast Guard, Marines, Navy, Army, and Air Force. There was some mention, and it can be a little controversial, but in some respects, but to recognize El Cajon fallen citizens that have fought during wartime. The reason why is we also got feedback from other veteran leaders that you might go down a difficult path because there may be people constantly coming up saying, well, this person was a resident at this time, and so possibly instead of recognizing individual members, we recognize people en masse. And that's more of staff's recommendation, is recognizing people en masse in that respect. So really what staff is asking for is a final execution by council today on a location. There are 4 locations identified here. Council is welcome to also discuss additional locations. So we have the Prescott Promenade, which is just a block that way. We have the Public Safety Police Building, which is right over here, Judson Park, and also the parking lot at Magnolia and Park. And just to briefly discuss some pros and cons, the Prescott Promenade is currently a location that's used for a lot of events. Every Wednesday night, they have the car show, and every Friday night, they have dinner and a concert there. And the idea behind it was that people attending those events, they would also recognize and pay reverence to those memorials. And this was definitely a drive for a while to have this as a location. The negative is really, or one negative is really that it's difficult for city staff to guarantee a strong safety presence at this location. There's a lot of, I want to use a crime prevention through environmental design term, ambush points or hiding places where people, if we have a statue or a memorial, may be able to hide behind it, where it may become problematic for city staff to actually secure its safety. The Public Safety Police Building, and this is looking at it and then also looking away from it. There's some nice features here because you already have the flag set up. You have the planners that we could actually identify as locations for different memorials or multiple memorials to be placed in it. It does have that security because it's right in front of the police station with a lot of cameras and a lot of activity with public safety personnel. It has a parking lot right next to it. The downside is really it's not like going to be featured by street side. You're not going to be able to see it immediately by street side. One implementation feature we could add in for designers is a lighting feature, so at night people from the freeway could see that as a possibility. And then there's Judson Park, which is essentially across the street from the police station. This one doesn't have the adequate parking. It does have that nice gazebo right there, in that really passive park. And this was strongly considered, except it was the parking situation more than anything that was a primary concern. We don't know about the safety necessarily, but ultimately it was the parking where we want to have ADA access with parking as best as possible. This one has been talked about more recently also, the parking lot at Magnolia Park, and also looking at other considerations with this. The city, and I'll ask city manager to correct me if I'm wrong with my terminology, but the city did purchase this from the redevelopment agency, and they're beholden to hold those parking spaces, and if they use those parking spaces, then they will have to actually create new parking spaces in the downtown area. And I hope I said that somewhat right.
That's right. There's a deed restriction, so those spaces have to be available to the public for free. And so if we were to allocate, let's say, for argument's sake, 30 spaces, the city would then have to go acquire some land somewhere in the downtown area and provide a public parking space.
The nice thing about this is it is drive-by worthy. It has that aspect to it too. So you can see looking out to the street, but also looking in from the street where there may be a plus there. It's just the whole redevelopment parking situation. I don't know if we want to go down that path either. The next steps are, once a site is identified, staff can begin to procure the services of a designer and begin to focus on cost estimates. Once we get the design or the multiple designs made, we would meet back with some of the veteran service organizations as well as have big input from the Veterans Coalition and then bring those proposals back to council for the council members here to ultimately decide what direction we're going to go on the design. And also understanding that in many veterans designs and talking with other cities, there has been up to 30% or more even of citizens not happy with the design. And I've spoken with a few council members saying that there's a strong possibility that we'll have about 30% of people not happy with this design because they may have their own value-laden interest in it. And it's not necessarily bad, it's just that's what it is. So just for council to keep that under consideration in their own determinations. So at this time, I'll take any questions and also I'll leave this up that the City Council identifies the location for a proposed Veterans Memorial. I think there might be public comment, so I'll take a seat unless you guys have questions.
See if there's questions. Any questions? Steve, go ahead.
You mentioned no parking at Judson Park. Is the parking right across the street in the park in Magnolia police lot not?
It can be conducive right now. I mean, they'll walk around and you'll have some ADA people that may need that additional assistance. They may see it as a barrier of having to cross a street. Oftentimes, when we look at the nationwide 10-minute walk program, crossing street is seen as a barrier, and that's why staff is not recommending that part.
Gary, go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Other side.
So when you think of CPTED or crime prevention through environmental design, I'll give you more of a landscape feature. So you want your tree canopy at least 6 feet or higher. So me as someone that's looking at natural surveillance, I can see all the way through, or your bushes to be 2 feet or lower. And so, I mean, for me, I would imagine at least being 4 feet tall. So you're going to have some type of hiding spot. I would imagine, but if you probably think of any Veterans Memorial, they're probably at least 4 feet high.
As far as hiding spot, you're thinking about people being behind the memorial so that law enforcement couldn't see them from the street?
Potentially. There's also, when I worked for another agency, we had the Veterans Park, Memorial Park, that I oversaw, and it was actually shrunk down into like a valley area, and we had deviant behaviors acting in and around it with graffiti and other things, and that was my own suggestion, is trying to limit any type of deviant behavior, if you will, in and around the memorial. I don't know if I answered your question, though.
Yeah, you did.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Thank you for the presentation and all the work you and your staff are doing. I know you guys have been making the rounds with all different veterans organizations, so I appreciate that, Frank. Can we touch on a little bit of I know that some of the locations provided a little bit easier with regard to construction because there's power at some locations and other ones there might. Right. Is that, I think in some talks that was going to prove to be a pretty significant cost at some locations to get power to some locations, and can you go over some of that?
So my understanding is that there's limited power here in Judson Park. So that's one location. So even the gazebo doesn't have a lighting feature inside of it. On the outside, it does. You do have street lighting, but then again, those power sources may be tapped. So there would be some infrastructure need at Judson Park in that respect. Here at the public safety, you see the power box. I don't know if you can see it, but it's in the large planter, and so there is a power box right in that location for that, as well as for irrigation. At the Prescott Promenade, there is power in the poles that we can tap into. That can be problematic just because we do have people that, I want to be cautious how I say this, they may try to hijack the power from the poles, so we're extra secure with how we distribute power in Prescott Promenade. I'm missing one. Here, we don't have any infrastructure in place for that lighting need. It's not like it can't happen, but it would be significant cost linear foot.
So all but one location is going to have increased costs with regard to lane infrastructure.
There'll be some infrastructure cost to each location. It's just some will be significantly more than others.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So if we were to consider the safety center in front of the police department, and you mentioned something about having it visible from the street, are you talking more like up lighting?
Vertical lighting.
Kind of like from the two towers where they have the two beams.
Right, exactly. Or I should say, it's similar to that. Within FAA regulations, we would still need to maintain.
That was going to be my next question.
Right.
Do we have any restrictions on that?
I do. I just can't remember them right now, but it's a certain amount of feet that we can't shoot beyond.
Okay.
I do want to mention also, before I forget, that the American Legion Post 303 strongly liked the public safety building area because it was a natural venue in terms of a gathering place.
Right.
That they already had all that seating arranged, and it was a very flat surface for them.
Can we get seating, like additional benches alongside the trail that is up near that?
I would want to speak with our folks in the community development department just to make sure that the walking paths meet requirements also,
Sure.
But yes.
And that's all ADA compliant up towards there?
Absolutely.
Correct?
All of that is ADA compliant.
Okay. My other question is on the designer, it seems to me that we discussed making this a local competition. Maybe I'm thinking of another.
I don't know if I can make it a competition, being that
not a competition, but reaching out to local designers.
We'll definitely
first
publicize it as a request for design or proposals for design, and then take those design concepts, and they'll have to also submit a qualification or request for qualifications, so they would identify that they actually have experience doing it. But at that point, once we identified these are the proposals that we would take back to the Veteran Service Organizations as well as the Veterans Coalition, and ultimately bring back to council once those groups also provided feedback, so we could, as staff, give council the full breadth of everybody's feedback.
Okay. And do we have a budget for this?
There's no budget at this time. Once we decide on a design concept is when we would request council for a budget.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
It seems to me that public safety, or right in front of the police station, would be the safest place. Am I off base on that at all, or is that a reasonable assumption?
I think for today, that would be a reasonable assumption, yes.
Okay. I thank you, Frank. Appreciate it. We have speaker cards on this item?
We do, sir. We have 2 speaker cards. The first one is Star Bales.
Hi, Star.
Hello.
Welcome back.
Hello,
Hi.
Mayor, City Council. My name is Star Bales, and I'd like to thank you all for your service to our city, our beautiful city, and our beautiful, diverse community. I also like to especially thank Frank Carson and the Park and Recreation for this beautiful presentation, and they've been working very hard on this project. I even remember from years ago they were talking about it, so, and I'm so glad that now I see it happening. Currently, I serve as the president of El Cajon American Legion Auxiliary, Post 303, and on behalf of the members of my unit, I am thrilled to be here today among all of you, discussing a plan that is coming from the deepest place in our hearts and we support. A veteran memorial that says to our community's diverse, brave men and women, your selfless commitment and hard work to keep us safe and prosperous are highly acknowledged and appreciated. A memorial that says your ultimate sacrifice, because you know a lot of our veterans died fighting to keep us safe and fighting so they can maintain the freedom that has been passed on through other brave men and women. So their ultimate sacrifice so we can be free. That is set on a stone, unforgotten. And that's what we're doing. We are putting that on a stone for them so they know that we appreciate it. I have no doubt on my mind that it's best way for all of us honoring our veterans and to let them know that their goals are accomplished. I mean, look at our city. We have a diverse, really, our city is so diverse comparing to so many other cities and communities in America. And look at us. We work together. We enjoy each other's company. We plan things. We build. That's what our veterans were fighting for. And I like to see that this project happen, and that would really make me very, very happy. And really, I really thank you all. I can tell that you guys are gonna make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Our last speaker is Jack Kane.
Hello, sir. Welcome.
Mayor, Council, thank you for having us. I have to put on my second hat. This is my American Legion 303 hat. I also have one for the Veterans Coalition. My third hat is that I'm a proud submarine sailor. And so I have a third hat. I'm the secretary at San Diego Base, Submarine Veterans Incorporated. All 6 of us who live in El Cajon support the Veterans Memorial, and we would like to see it over here at the public safety. American Legion 303, as you can see, we were here at the start. Eddie Murphy is one of our proud members, and the first memorial up there and on the Fletcher Parkway was put up when he was in a POW. He was in the EXO of the Pueblo when it was captured by the North Koreans. So American Legion 303 will stand behind the Veterans Coalition, and we would urge you to fund and help us put up the Veterans Memorial at in front of the police department. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming.
No other speakers, sir.
Okay, it's back to us. So the question is, where do we want to place this Veterans Memorial? Open to discussion at this point. Yes, sir.
Well, the last thing I want to see is a Veterans Memorial be defaced by some people. That would just absolutely break my heart. So I think the safest place for it is in front of the police station. and it's going to be less expensive to install it. Our veterans here like that location. The other locations just, I think, are quite appropriate because of the problems with, taggers and all that. And there are so many cameras around that police station, no one in their right mind would try and tag that memorial. So that's where I stand.
Anybody else will speak?
Yeah, thanks, Gary. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I agree. I went back and forth because I love the idea of having it in a public space where the public can interact with it. But as Councilman Gary said, the worst case scenario is it being defaced and people camping in and around it. And I think about the other veterans memorials around the country. So Tomb of the Unknown Soldier in D.C., and the World War II Memorial. The worst case scenario is if it gets defaced. But even still, in those other memorial sites, there's park rangers and security ensuring that you maintain a level of respect and dignity that's due to a memorial site. And we couldn't accomplish that at other sites, but that could be accomplished here. When I was at the World War II Memorial in Washington, D.C., there was someone hula hooping around, and there's family members there that are going with their to go pay respects to their family members or friends that have died. And so the park ranger stopped him from hula hooping, and I think, we couldn't maintain that level of respect at other locations. So I'm in full support of the public safety building location.
Any other comments? Somebody like to make a motion?
I'd like to move that the City Council, where are we at here? That we accept the location of the public safety building as our memorial site.
Come on up, sir. Come on up. It's a little out of... I'm going to make a motion then to open up the public hearing.
Second.
Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Okay. Hi, sir.
Afternoon. My name's Mike Valley, and I live in La Mesa. And we have that American Legion post with all the memorials out front. And this one is a great idea. How big is it is one of my questions. I didn't see it all. I just came in late.
I think we're not sure how it's... We have to get designs submitted at this point. There's a lot to do with this memorial. We have to get design submitted. We have to decide on the design. We have to figure out how much it's going to cost. We're going to have to figure out how to raise the money. So there's a lot of steps. But right now we're trying to figure out what location.
Okay, that sounds good. This site is this parking lot out here?
And no, we're talking about, right now there's a motion on the table, which I'll come back to talk about putting it in front of our police station here because it would be safe and there's room for it there.
Yeah, but the public can't see it as much. Did they consider an alternative, say, at Grossmont High School or El Cajon High School in their, whatever they have there for their honors?
I think this place we're at right now is there's been a pretty exhaustive study, and they came back and made some recommendations. We had about 4 different recommendations to choose from, and that's what the council's deciding on right now.
So it sounds like they don't know how much money it's going to cost.
That's true.
Okay, I offered to do it for the Kiwanis, the $5,000 pole. So it came in La Mesa, and they come up with the liability. 20 years ago, they said, well, we couldn't light the flag. And so the liability came up this last year or so. And so who's going to have the liability of the post? So it would be if the Kiwanians would take and install this, they would be partial liable, unless, I guess, you took it to the city of La Mesa. So that's out. So I asked the American Legion if we could put a plaque next to theirs in La Mesa. Well, there's so many Kiwanis clubs, they forgot how to get back to me and went to a couple of the others that didn't. It's about $5,000 for the pole, and it's about $1,000, which I was going to pay for the plaque. But and I think on this one, if they're studying the where and what, it's an educational tool, I hope. And what they should possibly do is have the Rotary, who supports the police and veterans, and the American Legion certainly, and veterans. So the city and the public should not pay for this.
No, we're going to be raising money. But
yeah, you're going to raise the money. That's great. But the Rotary and the Kiwanis and all the other ones, Chamber of Commerce, well, that's the city. So anyway, that's my pitch.
I appreciate it, sir. Thank you for coming. Did anybody else in the public want to speak on this? Okay, I'm going to make a motion to close public hearing. Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Now, we have a motion on the table from Councilmember Mitchell saying that the memorial should be placed in front of the police station. Is there a second for that motion?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
All right, thank you very much. Frank, thanks, Frank. We look forward to taking us to the next steps. The second administrative report on today's agenda is item 17. It's about an all-way stop sign on Windmill View Road, and I'd like to ask staff to tell us about this, please. Hi, Mario.
Right, good afternoon, Mayor, council members. Today I'm here to talk about an all-way stop sign request. Again, my name is Mario Sanchez. I'm the city engineer, deputy director of public works. And from time to time we get resident requests to look at intersections for stop signs. So I'll take it from there. This location is Woodland Way at Windmill View Drive, and Windmill View Road is in the northwest quadrant of the city, and kind of 125 is to the east, and Fletcher Parkway is to the south of Windmill View Drive. I'm sorry, Windmill View Drive is north of Fletcher Parkway. Section of Windmill View Road is about 3/4 of a mile. The posted speed is about 30 miles per hour. And it's a T intersection, and Windmill View Road handles about 1,500 vehicles per day. So the reason for this request was a limited sight distance at the intersection as you exit Woodland Way. And we went out in the field and took a measurement and compared it to our minimum desired sight distance based on we follow the California Highway Design Manual. And for a posted speed of 30 miles per hour, we need at least 335 feet of sight distance. And what we measured out in the field was less than the 335 feet, so about 177 feet. And here's another picture of approaching the intersection from the south. You can see the vehicle right around the hedges. So, I mean, it's just really limited sight distance. So as you're coming down this little bend, you really can't tell if there's an intersection there. And we have a mirror right about there that we placed a few years back. And on foggy mornings, it's really difficult to tell there's oncoming traffic. So this is our proposal. We normally, when we do always stop signs, we look at the volume, accident history, prevailing speed, and sight distance. And the most compelling reason for this particular installation is sight distance. It doesn't meet, we have a point system that we use. It falls short, but this location is really an ideal location for a stop sign. So with that, we recommend that the City Council adopt this resolution to approve installation of always stop signs on Windmill Drive at the intersection of Wood Glen Way in order to enhance pedestrian and vehicle safety. With that, I'll open up to questions.
Any questions? Michelle?
Hi. What is that, Wood Glen Way?
Yes.
Just curious why there's no stop sign at Wood Glen Way?
On Wood Glen Way or?
Right. So you have one on going in each direction on Windmill, and then on Wood Glen.
No, we don't have one on Windmill View Drive. So
Okay.
our request is to put in stop signs on Windmill View Drive.
So if it's an all-way stop, wouldn't that also include Wood Glen?
Yeah, there's an existing stop sign.
There is?
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, there's
I'm
an
sorry,
existing
I can't
stop.
see that far if there's a
Yeah,
stop sign there.
yeah,
Okay.
there's a stop sign there.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. So all the corners are going to be covered?
Correct, yeah.
Perfect.
And then we'll add stop ahead signs just to alert vehicles that they're approaching a new stop sign. And they'll be permanent as well. So
All right, thank you.
you're welcome.
Any other questions? Any opposition from the neighborhood to this?
No, we sent out mailers to all the residents on Wood Glen Way and in the vicinity of Windmill View Drive, and we had no opposition. So
Thanks for coming. Nice report.
thank you.
Are there any speaker cards on this item?
We have no speaker cards, sir.
All right, it's back to us. It seems like a obvious thing to do, but open discussion or somebody can make a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Thanks again, Mario. All right. There are no commission reports on today's agenda. Item 18 is my activities report, which is as reported. We're now at the activities reports for council members. Councilmember Deputy Mayor Steve Goebel.
As reported.
Councilmember Gary Kendrick.
As reported.
Councilmember Phil Ortiz.
I have one addition. I attended the East County Economic Development Council Gillespie Field Committee meeting this morning.
Great. And Councilmember Michelle Mitchell.
As reported.
There are no joint councilmember reports and no general information items on today's agenda. Item 23 is an introduction of an ordinance to approve updates to the posted speed limit on Washington Avenue. I'd like to ask staff to tell us about this.
Good afternoon again. Mario Sanchez, City Engineer, Deputy Director of Public Works. This item is, we call it an engineering and traffic survey to establish our posted speed limits on Washington Avenue. Let me give you a little bit of history or the regulations that we follow. It's on the next slide. So every 5 years, we're required by the California Vehicle Code to update our speed surveys. And the local traffic court requires us to do them every 5 years, as well as the state. This allows for the legal enforcement of our posted speed limits. And when we do our actual engineering and traffic survey, we follow the California Vehicle Code section 627, and we also follow the California Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices to update our surveys. And we look at, we collect the prevailing speeds, collision history, pedestrian bicycle activity, and any other roadside conditions that are not readily apparent to the motorist. So, for instance, there might be a driveway to a shopping center where a motorist is not familiar with. So those are the items that we look at. So Washington Avenue, those speed limits between El Cajon Boulevard and Granite Hills Drive have expired, and we updated or did surveys back in May and April of this year. And Washington Avenue is about 3.3 miles. And since we did the survey, or the last time we did the survey, we didn't do it. We had a project on the east end of Washington, and we reduced the travel lanes from 4 to 2. And we received an award by the American Public Works Association for this particular project. So since then, when we redid the speed surveys, we would probably notice a small decrease in the speeds. So, and next slide. So this is the data that we collected for Washington Avenue. There's 9 segments that it's broken up into. And the average daily traffic volume is on the next column, and then we look at the collisions for the last 12 months. And then we calculate a mid-block accident rate, compare it with the state average. So we are less than the actual state average, but there's 2 areas of concern. The section between Johnson and Magnolia, we had 6 accidents mid-block. And then from South 2nd to Hamishaw Road, which we have a posted speed, six accidents, we have a posted speed that is higher. I mean, 45 right now. So all in all, our accident rates is less than the state average for a 4-lane roadway. So, and this one is kind of a sample speed study. When we collect the free flow traffic, we'd use a radar gun, go out there and just measure the speeds during off-peak hours, usually during a weekday from 9 to 11, and then from 1 to 4 in the afternoon. So we're not impacted by rush hour traffic, just trying to get a representation of free flow speeds. And when we set up our speed limits, they're set at near the 85th percentile, so the majority of traffic is traveling within this area here. So that's how we establish our speed limits. And with that, we come up with our recommendations for updating our speed limits. And well, we saw that the section between First Street to Granite Hills Drive, we saw a reduction of the prevailing speed. So we can justify it to lowering the speed limit to 40 miles per hour. So, and the other sections of Washington Avenue, we maintain it at 40. So these are our summary of recommendations. So with that, we request the council to introduce the ordinance amending section 10.20, 1.30 of chapter 1020 to update our speed limits on Washington Avenue between El Cajon Boulevard and Granite Hills Drive. And with that, I'll open it up in any questions.
Questions?
So this would mean you would be reducing the speed in those areas that are currently 45 down to 40?
Correct.
Are there any other speed mitigation efforts being planned?
Yes. Between the section of Avocado and Mollison, we received a safety grant through the state, and we'll hopefully to put in raised medians and probably another traffic signal at Lincoln in Washington, just to reduce the speeds because it's a wide open street. And when we introduce raised concrete medians, we notice that the speeds are lowered at that, after the installation.
Great. Thank you.
Steve, go ahead.
You said surveys were done from 9 to 11 and 1 to 4.
Yeah, off-peak hours.
So because there's a school, did the school's traffic impact your speed survey?
No, we try to stay away. If we notice when the school is letting out or starting, we kind of avoid that that peak for the school. So,
And then I think as far as enforcement, the police can use radar in some situations of road length and not others.
this the speed survey, the police can legally enforce with radar, and that goes back to the section here of 40802.
Okay, so they could use radar on
all day long.
Any stretch.
Any
chunk
stretch, yes.
Of that thing. Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah.
Bill?
No, just a comment. I live on Washington, and I'm very pleased to see that we're lowering the speed limit. Our neighbors refer to it as Interstate Washington because people go so fast. And actually, I think we installed some the radar signs out in front of the Elks Lodge on Washington. I've seen that be an impact. That's fantastic. But I think this is a great move. I think Graham and I tallied accidents on Washington contributed to, I think, 3 power outages within a year's time frame. And that's impacted the community at large. And so lowering the speed limit, enforcement, anything we can do, as long as we're timing the lights so people, because it's a main thoroughway, Washington getting from the east side out to the freeways, we can time those lights. I think lowering it 5 miles per hour is worth it, not only for public safety, but avoiding those accidents that are going to knock down those power poles. So thank you very much for the work on this.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
Mr. Mayor, I just have a really quick comment. When we set speeds, it's one of the ultimate democracies because it really is set based on what the people feel comfortable driving. And I've been doing this job since 2000, and I've never seen in my entire experience so many street speeds being downgraded. It's usually the opposite, and it puts the city council in an awkward position of raising the speed limit in a neighborhood where they should be going lower for the safety, but in order to use radar, you have to. So this is a real kudos to our engineering department who has been looking at that street aggressively to figure out ways to use engineering tools, but also our police department for enforcing the current speed limits.
Thank you.
I got one more question. I would look into it based on that comment. I would look into these solar paneled your speed is signs on some of the larger stretches because that's really where you're going to pick up speed. This 2,600-foot stretch between Johnson and Magnolia and between South 2nd and Hamishaw. I think that was also like a 2,800-foot stretch.
Right.
You may consider the value of posting
the radar feedback
those
signs.
radar on those long stretches because that's where people are going to pick up speed.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you, Mario. I appreciate that. Let's see. Are there any public comments?
Sir, we do. We have one card from Mr. Paul Garibay.
Good afternoon, sir. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Councilman Mayor. I've been in constant communication with Mr. Sanchez. I understand. I live on Washington, and let me reiterate, Councilman Ortiz, it's considered Crashington now. So that stretch between 1st to 2nd, 2nd to Hamishaw is basically a drag strip at all hours of the night. I've reached out to the traffic sergeant. I really didn't get any outreach from him. So it's something that we need to really pay attention to. The last crash, the power pole was taken out, obviously. This last one on the corner of Washington and Dorothy, the car went into an apartment complex. What stopped it was the 2 boulders that are there. So it's obviously a problem area, and I would like to see more enforcement of that area, especially with the motor pool with the El Cajon PD. So I think that would help out. On top of that is I live on Dorothy Street. And I spoke to Mario last year. 2 of my personal vehicles were totaled on Dorothy Street for the fact that we have people that are coming off of Hamishaw, cutting across Dorothy to cut into Washington at high rates of speeds. And I think the last time we talked, we actually had more of like a speed or radar detector. So I think ultimately we may be at a stoplight to there. I think we need to do a little more surveying around that area, but we have cars speeding there up and down that street all hours of the night, And I moved to this neighborhood in 2019, and there was a reason why I moved to El Cajon, and I purchased my home here. I do love this community, but I think it's a problem area we really, really need to focus on more. And losing 2 vehicles there, my neighbor lost her vehicle a year prior to me moving into that street. So we really have to look at how many vehicles are coming down Dorothy also. And I can tell you, I would get woken up at least 3-4 times a night with cars speeding by. So, but I do think it's an area we really need to focus on. And if I'm more than willing to invite you to come over and we'll have some refreshments and sit on that corner and you will see these cars speed by. Literally, you will see them speed by. And I reached out to you, Mr. Goebel. I did send you an email. So hopefully we can talk further on this subject. But I think it's definitely in the step in the right direction that we are moving forward with this. But I think we can do a little bit more. The last thing I want is a fatality. I've been out there many times a night, accident after accident. I know 6 is on his report, but prior to that, there's been many, many more accidents on that. So we definitely want to get rid of the word Crashington on Washington, and hopefully we can move forward and do a little more diligence in that area. Thank you.
Thanks for coming. I appreciate it.
Yeah, to the resident's point, the traffic studies were done during rush hour times, but to his point, there is a nuisance after rush hour in the evenings around 8 or 9. So enforcement, I know it's kind of a whack-a-mole situation where you enforce, you ticket some people, and then it comes back. But a lot of those accidents, I think, that resulted in the power poles going down were in the evenings, and it's people going from on Washington, Hamishaw, past the Elks Lodge down, and sometimes they'll just blow through South 2nd light, and then, I mean, that's like got to be at least a half a mile from that section. So, yeah, it is a cause of concern, and I mean, anything our police department can do for enforcement, yeah.
Well, as a reminder, it doesn't matter what your posted speed limit is when someone's under the influence with alcohol or other drugs, that the speed limit, all the engineering things go out the door, right? And so if there's a lot of traffic, especially coming off the freeway in the area that the gentleman was speaking of, there's always going to be that as an issue. And as I recall, and maybe Mr. Sanchez recalls, but I remember at least a couple of those accidents, there were alcohol involved with those accidents. So
right.
That's good.
All right. Thank you. Sir, did you want to? Well, why don't you come on back up? Thanks, Mara.
Just wanted to chime in on his part. I understand those are drug and alcohol related, but we're talking about all hours of the day also. There are some that are just zooming by there in an excessive speed amount. So I think the enforcement would actually help out. So accidents are going to happen. People are going to be under the influence. But when you have sports cars just nonstop racing from first to second, and I see that they did change the timing on the lights, so it kind of catches you off guard. You approach, it's red light, and all you're hearing is them stopping, and then they mash it, and they continue forward. So I do understand that drugs and alcohol do play a key role, but it's not all the time. We have some drivers that are just not obeying the traffic laws. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks for bringing that to our attention. That really is concerning. Thank you.
Have we ever looked at, like, sometimes to slow traffic down, it's not a roundabout, but it's a curve in the road. You're driving straight, then you have to curve like a half circle.
A chicane?
To connect.
A chicane.
Sounds like a great word to me. Have we ever looked at that?
Not particularly on Washington because it's a higher speed street. Chicanes are mostly done in residential areas, but at specific signalized intersections, they do put in bulb outs to decrease the crossing distance for pedestrians. So that's what maybe you're alluding to, that type of traffic calming.
It sounds like you've looked at alternatives to slow traffic down through road design, and you've considered other options. Sounds good.
Graham, I don't want to turn this into a workshop, but do you think that you could come back with some recommendations on creative ways to use enforcement to mitigate as much of this as we can?
There is actually. There's a current project underway that Mr. Sanchez referred to that will be that should have a big impact, similar to what we did on the east side of Washington. That should have some impacts. We also got some authorization from the council to put in some those digital speed signs, so we can look at where those are currently located. Does it make sense to redeploy them? I think there's actually a plan in place from the council's direction. I think we need to be patient and see how that works, and then reassess it from that point.
Great. I'm happy to do that, but what I'm hearing from the council is that they are willing to be aggressive about this process.
Question. So if we're already looking at mitigating some of the speeds on these more thoroughfare situations, that's going to be across the city, and do you want people to put in reports or put in requests? Because I live off Mollison, and from Bradley to Greenfield is a speed concern all the time. I know on Ballantyne is another one. The cross streets, Ballantyne, Mollison, sometimes on First, Second, then you've got all of your east-west streets that are also having problems. And I see this a lot, from constituents that are really concerned about the speed, really concerned about what's going on. And, it's hard because we would have to hire probably another, 100, 200 officers in order to be everywhere at all times. And so I'd like to see on Mollison, I'd like to see those radar signs. I know on Ballantyne, they'd like to see those radar signs. Chase is another one that needs radar signs. I'm sure there are others. These are just the ones on the top of my head. Because it is really hard. And around schools, we've got a lot of incidents where people are not minding the rules, and then you've got combined with those who are speeding. So anyway, just a suggestion.
We have our work cut out for us.
Thank you. Put it on the list.
Thanks, Mario.
You're welcome.
Were there any more
No other
public
speakers, sir.
comments? All right, make a motion then to close the public hearing. Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
So I'm looking for a motion then to approve the introduction of the ordinance.
Move to approve.
Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote, and the title of the ordinance is an ordinance amending section 10.20.130 of chapter 10.20 of the El Cajon Municipal Code to establish a new speed limit on a portion of Washington Avenue from El Cajon Boulevard to Granite Hills Drive.
Thank you. There are no second readings of ordinances on today's agenda. We're back to closed session. Our city attorney will recite the title and lead us into closed session.
Thank you, Mayor. The City Council will be meeting in closed session once again for four items. Items 26, 27, 28, and 29. 26 is a closed session for conference with legal counsel on existing litigation pursuant to paragraph 1 of subdivision D of Government Code section 54956.9. The matter is Darren Ellers versus City of El Cajon. It's a workers' comp case, two cases actually, numbers ELCN-0018 and ELCN-0042. The second, item 27, is a conference with real property negotiators pursuant to Government Code section 54956.8. The property is located at 425 West Main Street. The negotiating party is Hala Inc., Hitesh C. Patel, CEO. City negotiators are the city manager, assistant city manager, and city attorney. Under negotiation will be price and terms of payment for acquisition. And then item 28 is a conference with real property negotiators pursuant to Government Code section 54956.8. The property is at 405 East Lexington Avenue. The negotiating parties are Centro de Salud de la Comunidad de San Isidro Inc. Kevin Matson is the CEO. The city negotiators are the city manager, assistant city manager, city attorney. Under negotiation would be price and terms for payment of acquisition. And similar to that one, for the same property, same conference with real property negotiators, same city negotiators, but the negotiating party in this case for the price and terms and payment for our sale of the property would be San Diego Chaldean Community Council, and their representative is Dr. Nori Barca. I should mention, Mayor, I think you need to make an announcement as far as items 28 and 29.
Yeah, I need to recuse myself from those items as I have a business interest with San Ysidro Health. All right. I'll make a motion then to adjourn to closed session. Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll do this, come back and conclude the meeting. Thank you very much. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are back, and I will ask our attorney to tell us what happened in closed session.
Thank you, Mayor. City Council met in closed session on the 4 items previously described. On item 26, which is a conference with legal counsel on existing litigation, the City Council gave direction to staff with respect to that claim. In item 27, the City Council gave direction to the city's negotiator in that matter. Item 28 and 29, Mayor Wells was disqualified from participating and left the closed session because of a conflict of interest. And the remaining council members gave direction to the city's negotiators on both of those items.
Thank you, Council. This brings us to adjournment, the regular joint meeting of the El Cajon City Council, El Cajon Housing Authority, successor agency to the El Cajon Redevelopment Agency, held this 12th day of September 2023, is adjourned till Tuesday, September 26th, 2023 at 3 o'clock p.m. Thank you very much.